As Rangers fans, we know that a goaltender is the backbone of a hockey team. At Abundant Wealth Management, we are your financial backbone, offering financial planning, wealth management, tax planning, and estate planning services. To schedule your free consultation, head to www.abundant-wealth.com. That's www.abundant-wealth.com. Abundant Wealth Management. Live, plan, triumph.
You're listening to Rangers Radio, your home for end-to-end coverage of the New York Rangers. With your hosts, Brendan Azoff, Zach Domino, and Steve Pappas. Blue Shirts fans, the puck drops now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rangers Radio. It's been a while. I looked it up today, Steven. It's been 2 months to the date that we did our last show. 2 months before that was the one before that. So it's been sporadic. I know we've all been busy. I know myself, I'm planning for a wedding in a month. I just passed the certified financial planner exam, so that took a lot of time. You've had career changes. You've been moving. Zook, who's not on the show today, just had a baby, and he's getting ready to move. So the boys have been busy, but we're happy to be back. How's everything going? How's Hartford? How's the new gig?
Yeah, now we're just going to abandon all of the things that got us to where we're at and just go right back to making sure we have shows weekly. So exactly. Zook's kid, gone. Your future wife job, gone. My job, gone. We're all just coming back, and we're going to go talk about Rangers hockey this offseason. But it's been great. I mean, moving out of Rochester, New York, the never endless winter has been fantastic. And, I would assume people would think Hartford's no better, but trust me, it is significantly a nicer place than Rochester, New York is. Also get to have the Hartford Wolfpack in town, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but very excited for the Hartford Wolfpack this year. I'm going to be around them a little bit. Actually got a tour of the facility a couple weeks ago. Shout out Alex Thomas there. Their PR guy, he does, or communications guy, he does their broadcasts, and he does a couple Ranger games too for the radio. I think when I'm trying to blanking on his name, I always call
Alex Faust.
Yeah, I always get him and Mike Monaco confused. And when
Alex sound alike.
Yeah, when Alex Faust goes and does TV, I think Alex Thomas then comes in and fills in for him. So he gave me a tour about 3 weeks ago throughout the building. Got to see some of the locker rooms. It's actually a pretty nice locker room for, I don't know what I was expecting for American League hockey, but it was nicer than I was expecting. It could be the worst locker room in the AHL. I don't know. It's first AHL locker room I've seen, but looks nice. They should be pretty good. I think there's going to be some interesting names coming down to Hartford this year. Some names that will definitely not be in there. Matt Rempe, that's the name that everybody would like to see in Hartford, but I don't think contractually he would be able to. And if they tried to send him down, I don't think anybody, or I think somebody would take him. But, the long-winded answer of saying that we're going to have a lot of great content coming out of Hartford this year. We're going to have a lot of fun and hopefully good hockey to be watching here in Hartford. And then obviously in New York, I think both of us are cautiously optimistic, and we know Zook, the way Zook is, he's optimistic about everything, but
no matter what. Yeah.
I think the two grizzled old pieces of shit like us that are pessimistic about everything, we have some cautious optimism this year, which is nice. It's nice to not be gloom and doom, especially watching the Mets every night. Like I need something, and baseball is not going to exist next year, so we're going to need some sort of hockey. We're cautiously optimistic. That's all I can say.
Yeah, listen, I think it's going to be an exciting year for our show. We're going to take some different approaches. Obviously, you're in Hartford now, so we have a little bit more of a direct line of communication with what's going on with the AHL affiliate of the Rangers. They can't be any worse than they were last year. They were dead last in the AHL, right? So hopefully there's some optimism there. Like you said, we're turning over a new leaf, right? We're going to try to be a little bit more positive on this show. And it's hysterical because over the last really 6 months for me, I've just been nonstop studying, trying to separate hockey and all that stuff from, my day-to-day life and trying to get through this exam. And now as soon as I'm done, I'm roping myself right back into this. And hopefully it's a little bit better of an experience than it was last year. But between you and Hartford, between some of the new stuff, new players that the Rangers have on the roster this year, some of the prospects that they've acquired, And then obviously some of the big moves that they made, there is a sense of, okay, it's not going to be as bad a product as it was towards the end of last season. That remains to be seen, but it's exciting nonetheless to see them involved in some trades and to see a blue line that doesn't look like it's going to be completely abysmal, especially in their own zone this year, which is fun. It's always a good thing when you could defend the puck.
I'll say this. I don't know if I can't speak for you, but I can definitely speak for myself. I'm a summer guy. Like, I love the warm weather. I can't stand the winter where it's dark gray all the time. There is always a point in the summer where I'm like, all right, it's hockey. Like, let's go. I'm done. It's usually sometime it's probably like a week after July 4th. I usually sit there and I'm like, all right, we're done. I need to get back into hockey. And I've absolutely hit that. Getting that tour of the Wolfpack Arena was the first domino that fell. Then I was at Shoulder Check on Thursday, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm seeing all these guys back, and I'm like, it's time to play.
Fortescue looked really good defensively in that game. I know it wasn't like a top tier effort level of a game, but Fortescue looked pretty good.
I watched JT Miller absolutely dance around. I don't remember her name. I think her last name is Constantinople from the Vancouver Whitecaps. He didn't have to do that. Like, the games like, what do we do? I was standing there behind the net, and you just heard everybody in this section go, come on, man. It was so funny. But no, that game was I joked with a couple of the guys that I was sitting with, and I was like, the goaltenders suck. And like 5 shots in, it was like 3-2. Just finding something to be that's when I know I'm back. That's when hockey's back, is when you're watching like a glorified all-star game and you're like, wow, these goaltending has been awful.
Yeah, the first 3 shots that Alex Lyons faced were 2 breakaways and a backdoor tap.
I was in the Zamboni. I don't know if you can go back and look if you find me in the video or whatever. I was sitting in the Zamboni door, just shooting the game, and the first 3 goals happened right in front of me, and I'm like, maybe I move. Maybe this is I feel like this is a bad omen. Alex Lyon, by the way, absolute nut job in the greatest way possible. I got to talk to him before the game. He is just literally your antithesis of like a hockey guy that you ask a question and within 3 seconds they give you the 5-word answer: pucks in deep, pucks on net, win hockey games. Yep. Alex Lyon is an absolute joy to be around. And some of the things that I've heard about him just being in Buffalo and just in general are fantastic. Again, long-winded answer of saying I'm ready for hockey season to start.
I was on my bachelor trip in Montreal 2 weeks ago and took a tour of the Bell Center, just to kind of get that similar thing, walk into that locker room, and I'm like, all right, it's time, right? You got all the banners around you. It's hockey season again, and we're starting to get closer. And the beauty is we get 2 more games, regular season games this year, so it's a shorter preseason, quicker turnaround. I think the first game for the Rangers is September 29th, if I'm right. Up in Boston against former NYR Will Borgen.
I'll be there.
Steven will be there taking in that action. We could talk about it now, I guess, because it's been 8.5 minutes so far already, and I'll put this on the screen so everybody can see and refresh their memory. But that trade, or the 2 trades, I should say, with Boston, between acquiring Korpisalo for a reason that's unbeknownst to me, and sending Will Borgen. The Will Borgen trade made sense, right? You got to clear up some cap. You wanted to create a blue line spot. Understood. The Korpisalo trade, when Dylan Garand has been kind of geared up to be that guy that's going to take that backup role when Quick retired, which he just did, and then adding a $5 million goaltender as a backup option doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, but that's what they did. So what are your thoughts on that? Because they are going to be seeing them in the first game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I originally didn't like Korpisalo. I think I just don't care, right? Like, he's probably going to end up in Hartford. Like, I don't think he is, like, because you're going to have to, I believe if you send Garand down, he would have to clear waivers. I could be wrong on that. Somebody please fact check me on that one. But Korpisalo, if you're sending him down, right, you're taking away half of his salary. I believe he would be making $1.5 million down in Hartford. But you would still be asking for somebody to claim a $8 80 goaltender off of waivers at $3.5 million if you do send him down. So, like, I think on paper or when it just happened, it was a little confusing as you're like, why are you acquiring a all over the hill bad goaltender for so much money? But I once I realized that, hey, he's probably just going to be in Hartford. He's going to be, Hartford starter and making $1.5 million. I think it made a little bit more sense. I know Garand didn't start out real well last year, but he really came into his own come December and really ended the season strong for a team that sucked. Like, it's almost like the Shesterkin debate. I remember texting you guys after the season. I'm like, I didn't realize Shesterkin was like 4th in save percentage this year or something, like top 5.
Feel that way.
He was like top 5 in save percentage on top of like being on a team that was like 15 games under 500. He was like a 7 or 8 game over 500 goalie, which, like, that just shows how good the goaltending in this organization is. I think Garand is going to get that look at the backup spot. Again, it's tough. It's such a tough position to be in, right? Like, you're not going to be the starter. No matter who comes in, you're not taking Igor Shesterkin out of the net for, more than 20 games, 25 games in a year, because as long as he stays healthy, which, it was a big if last year, and that's really where the season derailed. But Shesterkin's going to play 60, 61, 62 games. So, like, there's not many goalies in the league that can do that anymore. Shesterkin is one of those guys. But you're asking a guy to go in a position where he's going to play 20 games. Like, in Hartford, Garand was the guy. So it'll be interesting to see. I am less upset with Korpisalo's deal and trade as I was at the time that it happened, just based off the fact that he's not going to be in New York. It makes no sense for him to be in New York.
Well, that's what you think, and then we'll see what happens as we actually get closer to the season. I look at, like, especially Dylan Garand, right? And both of these guys, either whether it's Garand or Korpisalo, in an ideal world for me, Shesterkin doesn't play more than 60 games, right? It would be in that 55 to 60 range, just because he's 30 this year. You want to make sure that he does stay healthy, especially if they do jump into a playoff spot. You want him to be as rested as humanly possible. Now, if you come down a stretch, you're in a tight race. Obviously, Shesterkin's going to get the starts, but I feel like there's a fine line, and we've seen this, like, with Connor Hellebuck out in Winnipeg, right, where he's playing every single game, right? He's playing 65, 67 games a year, and then he gets to the playoffs and kind of drops off because he's just gassed. You don't want that to happen to your goaltender. So that's why I was excited for Garand to kind of step in here, because he is young enough to play 22, 25 games. You're not really going to see a drop off. He'll still get his taste and also get kind of acclimated at the same time. Now we don't know exactly if is he going to be the backup, is Korpisalo going to be the backup, but either way, whoever is the backup has to give you 20 to 25 starts of solid goaltending. And I think that's where the positivity and the optimism comes from for the both of us, is because they revamped their blue line, right? We went from just one pair of Fox and Gavrikov to now you're going to have Sean Durzi and Marcus Pettersson as a potential second pair.
Love it.
Schneider
I love
on the
that
right
pair
side
so much. I love that pair so much.
It's pretty dynamic when you think about it. And then, to me, the biggest question is who's going to be that third left defenseman. I mentioned Fortescue. We talked about him. He was at the Shoulder Check Showcase charity game. You have Vakanainen still. You have Robertson still. So who's going to wind up being that person? Is it going to be Albert Smith, who they just drafted in the first round of this draft, right? So there's really 4 players vying for the final left defenseman spot. I think if Smits is ready, it might just be him because of the pedigree. But I wouldn't be surprised if Fortescue snuck in there either. And then what goes to your point is whoever doesn't make it is going to wind up being in Hartford, right? So Hartford's left side of their defense should be pretty loaded, because there's going to be 3 guys that could potentially play in the NHL playing defense for Hartford on the left-hand side. So it's going to be interesting to see. But whenever you have a top 4 that's mobile, actually can defend, and then you have Igor Shesterkin behind them, you have to like your chances to, hey, you score 2-3 goals a game, and you're probably going to win more than you lose.
Yeah, I think when you talk about Albert Smits, I think he would need to have a otherworldly camp to start the year, at least start the year in New York. I know we obviously talked a lot about Braden Schneider, last season, and I think it was a little unfair to get on Schneider. He was very clearly playing, minutes that he and in a spot in the lineup where he very clearly could not play at. And obviously the cap's going up, so it's really hard to evaluate like what a player's making versus what their value is now, because the numbers that have been so ingrained in your mind that Braden Schneider is like a $2.5–3 million defenseman. A $2.5–3 million defenseman is now a $5.5–6 million defenseman. So I think Braden Schneider, where he is I'm so like, that's almost more exciting to me than it's not. But Marcus Pettersson and Sean Durzi on the second pair is the fact that you're going to have Braden Schneider in a third pair role, which is exactly where he needs to be. Like, if you had Braden Schneider on your top pair, yeah, your defense core sucks. That's a problem. You can't have that. But if you are playing Braden Schneider on the third pair, he's a pretty damn good third pair defenseman. If you're having him play, not against the top guys, he could be a pretty good third pair defenseman. And I think Fortescue as well. I think he's just, again, a little too young, a little too green. It would probably benefit him to start in Hartford. Matthew Robertson is the guy that I think is going to get that leash, at least to start the year. I think they saw enough of Vakanainen to where they know what they're going to get from him. And I think the expectation, at least of this team, might be a little higher than inside the team is a little bit higher than probably what it was midway through last year, when they would throw whatever stuck at the wall on defense and just hope they can get through the season. So I think Matthew Robertson probably gets that start come the regular season. But again, you don't know what camp's going to look like. You don't know injury wise. You don't know, who's going to really impress or who's going to have a great camp, who's not going to have a great camp. That's going to start in a couple of weeks, which is, crazy to think about. I know we've got NFL games that are coming up in a few weeks, and we're really getting back into the sports calendar with the last time baseball is going to be played for 2 years. So we're really getting back into the
baseball's already over after today.
We're getting back into the nitty gritty of the sports calendar. But I mean, there's a couple guys. I mean, Cole Baudouin, I know, is a guy that Ranger fans, I think, are really going to like. Like, he feels like, and he is just like a dog. I remember watching the World Juniors, whatever year he was there. I remember hearing his name like every shift he was out on the ice for Team Canada, which, by the way, the United States beat him in the showcase yesterday 7-2 in the U20. And then I think U16, Canada lost 6-0 to Czechia. So what's going on with Team Canada?
Those scores are crazy, man. Usually
fantastic.
It's the other way around.
I love it. But getting off topic, but Cole Baudouin is a guy that I don't think you're going to see this year, but is a guy that I think Ranger fans are really gonna like. And I think between him and Durzi, getting both of them for Vincent Trocheck, like that has the potential of being like I don't want to call it immediately, but like a Mika Brassard trade. Obviously, that was 1-for-1. But if you hit on Baudouin, you hit on Sean Durzi, like Vincent Trocheck's a great player, but you could replace one guy with two really solid NHL players. Like, that's great. That's fantastic. And obviously, Durzi, health is a concern for him, but I'm very interested in watching him move the puck this year. Like, I think they missed a lot last year. When they had Keandre Miller, they had a very clear second power play quarterback. They didn't have that last year, and that's part of the reason why the second power play unit just like never played. Like, I think Gavrikov was their second defenseman on the power play, or their top defenseman on the second power. He has no business playing power play minutes.
He did set his career high in goals last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a byproduct of being put in that situation. But like, he has no business being your quarterback on the power play. Yeah. So it makes a power play interesting, and having Fox and Durzi running the two. And we can get into the debate at some point in this show if you want about Adam Fox. I know we talked about it, you and me, privately yesterday, about how he is probably the most underrated player in the league at this point for how dumb just fans are and in evaluating. And the amount of that's how I know I'm done with the offseason, is when I start seeing TikToks of like the most overrated players in the league, and Adam Fox is like 1-1 on the list, and it's It's
Come on.
so bad, man. It's so bad.
It's the complete opposite of that,
Yeah,
actually.
but
It's honestly disrespectful at this point.
oh, 100%.
How
It
he's
is
talked about.
absolutely disrespectful for Adam Fox. We are if there's two players that we'll go to bat for in this show, I think it's been very clear. It's been, well, for me it's three, but it's Adam Fox and it's Igor Shesterkin, and for me it's Mika Zibanejad.
Yep. I knew that was coming.
Yeah, for me it's Mika. I was very upset that he was not at shoulder check, but I think he's in Sweden, and I think that's a pretty good place to be.
I do want to talk about Schneider really quick, because over his career, his most common defensive partners have always been like the Soucies and Vakanainens, right? So I have a hard time judging him. I know his analytics are really piss poor. He's 24 years old. He is pretty mobile. I'm interested to see in sheltered minutes. He's not going to be asked to play 18, 20 minutes a night. It's probably going to be closer to that 15 range. How can you play when you're playing against a Robertson who could also skate, or a Fortescue, or eventually maybe an Albert Smiths who is a more mobile, left-hand partner with you? To me, that's where this contract is. And the beauty of it is it's a 1 year, $5.5 million. He's 24. You could trade that contract at the deadline if you really don't like the way it's panning out. And I think a lot of Rangers fans, when they're looking at this season, you have to realize that this team, when excluding goaltenders, they have 8 players past this year who have a contract. 8. So if this season goes to crap right out of the gate and it's a struggle, and they're looking to call up like the Green Trees and players like that just to see what they have, you're not locked into many of these players, right? And you're going to have like Bjorkstrand's going to be a deadline piece that you could flip. You're going to have Will Cooley, who's an RFA. You have to make a decision there. Taylor Radish, if somebody wants a fourth line guy. Cartier, right? Joe Veleno, fourth line guy. And then you start to just go down the list, like even on defense, right? We just talked about Braden Schneider, but Vakanainen is a free agent. Matthew Robertson, somebody might want a chance on. So there's options to start to piece together some draft capital and then move forward with the cap going up. As we know, McDavid's of the world are going to be free agents. Like, there's a lot of potential for next season. So my optimism does not just extend to, are they going to make the playoffs? But it's also the way that Drury kind of set up the contract situation. It's the first time where they're not going to be behind the 8 ball in terms of bad contracts. And I think that that's a good thing. So I'm going to give Schneider a 25-game leash. I think that's fair. I think you give him a 25-game leash, see what he has. Outside of him, though, I'm very, very pleasantly surprised with how they constructed this defense. I think Durzi is the perfect, 2 puck-moving defenseman behind Fox. I think that the top pair and the second pair are going to be able to hold their own against, both the first and second lines of teams. And then you give Igor Shesterkin a better chance to not face 8 to 10 high-danger chances a night, and you're going to have to like your odds.
What we got out of Gavrikov last year, I think he struggled for, at times, but was mostly really good as a defensive defenseman. And
yep.
by every metric and by the eye test, Marcus Pettersson is sort of like I don't want to call Sean Durzi like a Costco Adam Fox, but like you get what I'm trying to say there. Like, it feels like Pettersson and Gavrikov are sort of the same player. And to have somebody like that on, like, it feels like the Rangers, granted, we haven't even, the fact that we're 22 minutes into this show, 23 minutes into the show, we haven't mentioned Pavel Dorofeyev's name. Like, we haven't even really talked about Pavel Dorofeyev.
I wanted to finish with that because that's obviously the biggest one.
Yeah.
I have a couple of takes there too that I want to go over with you.
Because we, it feels like this team is going to be, have a heavy emphasis on trying to win games 3-2. I don't want to say 2-1 because I don't think their defense is necessarily that shut down, but like, it feels like they're going to try and win a lot of close games this year. Like, they're not going to run you up and down the ice. The Rangers are not a team that has a ton of speed, even with the new additions. Like, Pettersson's not the fleetest of foot. I think Durzi is a little bit better of a skater. Dorofeyev's a good skater, not a great skater. Like, I think they're not going to beat you in transition. And that's, unfortunately where we would like the team to go. But they have a little bit more firepower, and that's assuming JT Miller is a little bit better and not as banged up as he was last year. But I will say, I've said it to you. I've said it in the group. I've said it to a couple friends. I think it's going to be controversial. I think I'm going to say something a little controversial here. I am ready to give JT Miller a second chance. I am very much ready to give JT Miller a second chance this year. I think injuries played a huge role last year. Obviously, I think everything and then just piled up into kind of a shitty attitude, which, I would assume that he would, say was a little bit shitty of an attitude. But the amount of times that I've heard guys on Team USA that have talked so highly of JT as a leader and just as a player, like it got to the point where it seemed like I would hear the Kachucks talk about it. I heard Tage Thompson talk about it. I heard Charlie McAvoy talk about it. I heard almost Brock Boyle. What's his name?
Brock Besser.
No, definitely not Brock Besser.
Oh, Brock Faber, excuse me.
No, I got the other one. Matt Boldy.
Jesus Christ, you're going through the whole entire roster here.
Matt Boldy, like between Boldy, McAvoy, Tage Thompson, the Kachucks, like every time I would turn on a podcast, like they're talking about how great of a guy JT Miller is and how great of a leader JT Miller is and how important of a player JT Miller is. And like those guys are winners. So like if they're sitting there thinking about that and they're sitting there and that's their opinion, then who am I to say that, he's a bad captain or not great in the locker room or not great like on the ice? Sure, like he did not have a great year last year. There's probably a reason for that. There's also probably a reason that he can't be your number one option scoring the puck. Like he can't. And we say that 3 years ago, he had 100 points. So
exactly, he's not that far removed from that.
No, he's not that far removed. And if you have him on the second line or if he's playing second line minutes for most of the year, like sure, I think he's probably more of a third line guy now. I don't think the Rangers necessarily have the ability to put him on the third line. I think they have to put him in the top six. Then he's a fantastic like third line player. But I'm ready to give him a second chance. I really am. I think it's a good year to turn over a new leaf. I think with all the changeover that's going on in the organization, obviously we're not big Chris Drury fans. So we both thought Chris Drury had a really good offseason and really have set them up. First time I think we've ever seen him set up for the future and like you'd said, getting ahead of the 8 ball rather than behind the 8 ball. So, it's cautious optimism. I'm ready to give Miller a second chance. I'm good with giving Drury this year. Like, let's see. And then obviously Quentin Dolan coming in. Like, who knows? Obviously, that also means like I don't know where Chris Drury stands in Quentin Dolan's eyes. Like, he's obviously not. He's not Quentin Dolan's guy. Like, he's James Dolan's guy. So I'm very interested to see what the difference in Quentin Dolan makes in the organization. I think he's a little bit more of an analytic darling than his father is.
Yeah,
he's a little bit younger. I think a little bit more in with the times. I also think he wants to prove something. Like, I know it's a nepo hire, but it feels like he wants to prove that hey, I'm not a nepo hire. Like, I can do this as well. I think he had a lot to. He had a footprint or fingerprints on the Knicks this year, which is great to see. He's got his fingerprints over a championship. So there's a lot of new, right? Like, there's just so much new that it's hard to be as pessimistic as we were last year because there is so much unknown that we can be optimistic about.
Yeah, I don't even think your take's that hot. I think we have to give him a second chance. He's on this team.
Yeah, no choice. Like, he's going to be there no matter what.
And I do think like he missed 14 games throughout the course of the year, but we all know that he had an injury in training camp that obviously lingered, right?
He needed to miss more.
He needed to miss more earlier in the season so that he can come back healthier. So that lingered throughout. You had Shesterkin miss 13 games. People forget Fox missed almost 30 games. So
Fox and Shesterkin, by the way, I think missed 16 games together when they were both out at the same time. And I think they went 2-13 or 2-14 in that time.
It was when that whole debacle started.
Yeah.
And I think that as fans, right, when you're in that moment, you just see loss after loss stacking up and you start to get negative. And that's our prerogative as fans is, okay, it's going bad and it doesn't feel like it can get much worse, especially 2 years removed from the highs that they had going 7 straight in the playoffs. And then all of a sudden you're in the conference final. But we have to take a breath and understand that 3 key pieces were out for elongated stretches last year on a team that was already kind of weak and thin in terms of their depth. Their depth got deeper on the blue line, right? If Fox misses a couple of games this year, they're more equipped now to handle that than they were last season. If JT Miller gets hurt, they're more equipped to handle that now. If Igor Shesterkin gets hurt, I don't think anybody's going to be equipped to handle that. But they have two guys that we now know can play NHL minutes. As
they don't have Spencer Martin coming in to play 5 or 6
exactly.
games. Like Spencer Martin is barely all due respect to the man, like he was barely an AHL goalie last year.
He wasn't. So when you look at that, I think they're better set up. And then to me, the whole Quentin Dolan thing's very interesting because, like you said, right, quote unquote Nepo hire. He's been a part of this whole thing, whether you knew it or not. He's been behind the scenes, but this is his opportunity now to step out of his dad's shadow and kind of leave an imprint. And the Knicks obviously just won the NBA championship. We all know how crazy New York went for that. If Quentin Dolan can come into the Rangers and over the next, few years build this team that also does that, and he could put that together for himself, I mean, like, to me, that's where the motivation comes. If somebody gave me a job and said, listen, you're hired only because you really know who I am or you're related to me, my goal would be every day to prove that I actually deserved it. So to me, that excites me a little bit because I'm like, oh, there's going to be some motivation now on the Rangers side when normally it's just been on the Knicks side of things as the primary motivator. So we'll see how that goes. But the thing I wanted to ask you is if you look at the way the first line is set up between Zibanejad, Lafreniere, and Perreault, how good they were to end the year last year. As much as I don't want to break them up, I think Bjorkstrand, Dorofeev, and Miller on a line has two shooters, not enough, puck movers. I don't necessarily like that. So I would swap Perreault and Dorofeev, Perreault and Bjorkstrand and bump that line up. I think it would be Miller, Dorofeev, and Perreault makes a little bit better of a trio there in terms of moving the puck, having one true sniper and two guys that can, be that bulldog style in Miller, and also Perreault, who could be that perimeter guy. I like that a little bit better.
I am completely okay with. I mean, I guess then at that point, your first line is Miller, Perreault, and Dorofeev. I
don't think they have a true first line.
No, they don't. They don't. But it something about having Oliver Bjorkstrand in your top 6, I don't think is great. Like I don't.
Well, that's why we talked off. They're one forward away from having a true team that you're like, okay, they're going to the playoffs, like, and that can happen still.
Bjorkstrand he's a great piece. Like I always watching him in Tampa Bay, watching him in Seattle, like he is your quintessential third line, fourth line forward winger. Like he is
can also score.
Like he is. I want to be nice about this. He is what Ranger fans. He is what Ranger fans think Will Cooley is, right? Like he is a proven like third, fourth line scorer. Maybe not. They don't. Maybe not playing as physical as Will Cooley does, but he definitely scores at the rate that Ranger fans think that Will Cooley scores at. And I think that being able to have him, we sort of talked about it in the Schneider debate. Like I think he's playing a little bit out of his depth. If you're asking him to play in your top 6, and especially if you're asking him to play top line minutes with Mika. But I'm fine with Perreault playing with Dorofeev. Like I think that's the key for me. I think Perreault playing with Dorofeev and whoever the center is, I'm okay with. Whether it's Mika, whether it's JT. I need those two to play together. But you mentioned they're one forward away from being like a true. The Metro's so bad that they can make a run this year. Like it feels like they can make the playoffs with how bad the Metro is. The Devils are always a wild card. The Islanders, I think, got very lucky last year. They won a lot of overtime games and still didn't make the playoffs. Columbus is going to stink. I don't think, Pittsburgh is going to obviously go for it. So they just need another winger. I think they need another winger, and that's what it's going to come down to.
Like, I'm surprised they haven't given Patrick Laine an offer.
Yeah, like, I said it at the start of the year, as Patrick, or at the start of the offseason, Patrick Laine, and
I'm not sitting here saying, I'm not misinterpreting this for Winnipeg Patrick Laine, but even what you just said, Will Cooley on the left and Oliver Bjorkstrand on the right on your third line with Noah Laba and his speed factor in the middle, Will Cooley could shoot the puck and check and forecheck. Oliver Bjorkstrand could shoot the puck too, and then all that does is that bumps down Cartier now to your fourth line, and it makes you,
which is where he should be.
Exactly. So Patrick Laine might come in and it might not be the right fit, right? Like we all know he's had his off ice issues and he hasn't really found that game after his first 3 or 4 seasons in the league. But the guy could flat out score the puck. And if you're talking about a top 6 type of winger that you need, if you can get any remnants of that old Laine, that's more of a top 6 piece than Bjorkstrand is. And guess what? If it doesn't work out, then you're in the same spot you are right now, where Bjorkstrand jumps up to the top 6 and everybody kind of slots up a little bit. But they have $2.5 million in cap space to play with right now. They're they got 13 forwards, 7 defensemen at the NHL level on their roster. And that's including Korpisalo as the backup with $2.5 million in cap space. So if he goes down, they're not really paying the full $3 million of his contract. So I think they're one top 6 forward away. I wouldn't even be surprised if we got an alert in our phones in a couple of weeks that said Schneider was traded for some sort of forward. I think they kind of that ship has pretty much sailed at this point. All the big moves have kind of been made, but there's options out there where it's like you could take a flyer on a Shane Wright. You could take a flyer on Laine. Like there's pieces that you could have where we're not sitting here saying the Rangers are cup contenders. So this is the type of season where you take that flyer.
I think if I were to sit here and say here on August 2nd, like I think the ceiling is 3rd in the Metro.
Which after last year, I would be over the
But
moon.
it's also a byproduct of how bad the division is. Like
I agree.
Like if this team was in the Central or if this team was in the Atlantic, like I don't think they make the playoffs. Like I don't think their ceiling is playoffs.
If you look at the playoffs last year, right? Pittsburgh, Philly.
That was
teams.
2 of the worst playoffs teams I've ever seen. That was one of the worst. Like strip away the fact that it's Pittsburgh and Philly. That was some of the worst hockey I've seen played in the postseason. It was awful. Yeah. Both of those teams were terrible.
The one thing that the Rangers have over those teams, if they sneak in, is the goaltending. And we've seen that no matter. I don't care if you're talking about recent memory, if you're talking about the Henrik Lundqvist days. The one advantage that the Rangers have had over 99% of the teams that they've played in the postseason is that they have the better goaltender in every series. And that's not going to change right now. I don't see any goaltender, maybe outside of Vasilevsky, that could really give Shesterkin a run for his money in a playoff series. And if you sneak in and he gets hot, I mean, you really never know. Now, I don't think that they're a good enough complete roster to really go deep in a run, but if you're talking about can you win a playoff series, if you sneak in, absolutely you can with Shesterkin. Nobody's going to want to play against him in goal. Now will they make the playoffs? That remains to be seen. How all of this unfolds, we really don't know. And the East is pretty loaded. Like you talk about the top 2 teams in the Metro. Carolina just won the Cup. Washington just completely bolstered. They might have one of the best
Washington
four lines in the East or in the NHL at this point. So you're not really going to compete like in a playoff series. If you finish 3rd in the Metro, you're playing Washington or Carolina. Can they win?
Probably not.
Right. So that's your ceiling. But I would take playoff hockey over watching other teams play playoff hockey any day of the week.
It's true.
It's going to be fun.
It's funny. And I was just doing by math. I was just thinking about it in my head, trying to think since 2012. How many times have the Rangers made the playoffs and not won a round? I think it's only 3 or 4 times in the last 15 years. Like it feels like every time they're there, they win. Like they're at least winning a round. If I'm remembering correctly,
they lost to the Devils in the first round.
2016 against the Penguins, the Devils in 2023. I'm blanking on one. I know there's one more in there. They beat Montreal in 2017. Lost to Pittsburgh in the first round. There was a year where they lost to Washington, I think, in the first round. Whatever year that was. I think it might have been earlier. I think that might have been 2010 or something. But it feels like whenever the Rangers make the postseason, like they're in it. Like they're going to win a round, right? Like so it's weird to sit here and be like, hey, the ceiling is probably getting bounced in the first round. And I don't want people to take it out of context. Like I think that's their absolute ceiling. Like we're talking about a team that finished 3rd worst in the National Hockey League last year in points and record. Like to sit here 3 months later and say, yeah, their ceiling is the postseason, I think is their absolute ceiling. I think very more like what more likely will happen. So they're just going to be fighting for a postseason spot and probably be like the 10th team in the East at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Which gets you in the playoffs in the NBA, by the way.
It does. It's not the same league. I have a hard time. Like the part that does scare me is that with the way they're constructed, especially goaltending situation, and then they do have, a number one defenseman. Now they have a top 4 that could actually compete. They're constructed in a way where they could wind up in that middle ground in that NHL purgatory. And the only saving grace to me is that they're going to have an absolute boatload of cap space next year, and it's still the Rangers. So we know they're going to be all in on some free agents that could make a difference. But if last year showed us anything, you can't bank on that because these guys are getting signed and inked up. It's hard to kind of, because it's August 2nd. So we haven't even seen a practice yet. It's hard to really fathom and say where the ceilings are. And we'll get to all of that as we get closer to the regular season.
We're also dumb. Like we're also dumb. Like
I had them finishing second in the Metro last year. They finished 3rd worst in the NHL. Yeah. We all had Washington kind of somewhere in that range. Washington struggled. Like the Devils we had making the playoffs, they struggled. You never know what happens. Injuries, poor performances. Like it's just that's why you play the game. So I'm interested in watching them this year, which is something come April of last year, I wasn't really interested anymore. We all knew what was going to happen, right? And they have guys like Gabe Perreault. Is he going to take the step? Is Alexis Lafreniere going to take a step that we've been asking him to take for how many years, right? Is Liam Greentree going to eventually get a call up, and is he going to be impactful? Is Albert Smith's going to have a great training camp and force his way into, like, there's storylines here that we haven't had in recent years. Their prospect pool, I think, was ranked, top 16? Where 2 years ago they were in the bottom 1/3 of the NHL. So their prospect pool is slowly starting to accumulate. Let's try to enjoy, some of the positive storylines and not focus on, they're going to be capped out here or they're not good enough to win. We all know that, but they're building something that's a little bit different. I still don't believe that they could truly retool. And I think that what we're going to see is that come next offseason, they're going to try to go out and get a couple of big fish, which, depending on who you ask, may or may not be the right way to go about it. But that's what they're going to want.
Okay, if then I'll ask you this question: Is what they're doing not a retool? Then, like they're obviously not going for it this year. They sold last year, and if they're going to go for it next year, that feels like a retool to me.
It's a retool by definition. But as soon as you make a trade for Dorofeev, and you have as much cap as you have next year, you're basically signaling that you're trying to keep this window open. Adam Fox has another year before his full no trade becomes a partial no trade, right? Shesterkin is going to be 31 this season, and he's starting to get a little bit older. We all know that they're 1-2 down the middle in terms of Zibanejad and Miller is going to the later stages of their 30s, right? So Drury is, as much as we give him some grief for his moves, he does understand that if this group is going to have a chance, he has to start adding people now. They don't have the time to wait. And clearly he thinks that there is enough there that he can retool. So as soon as you make that trade for Dorofeev, as soon as you get Dursey and Pettersson, who are both under contract for at least next year as well, and as soon as you start to see that caps, go up and you have cap space and you see the names that are going to be free agents coming up, I don't see any world in which this team is not aggressively approaching this offseason next year. And I think that's what this sets up for. It sets up for a more competitive team this year, a way for Drury to kind of get a sense of how legit is Perreault. Can Lafreniere be that guy that they need in the top 6? How are these prospects going to mature through Hartford, and who can come up and play at the NHL level next year? And then next season is really where he's planning on going all in to get back to the conference final and Stanley Cup, hopefully.
I'm looking at these names right now. First of all, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong list because I can't see Connor McDavid on this list. 2027, right? It's 2027 free agents. That's this class of next year. I mean, you're talking Jason Robertson, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, and and Connor McDavid. Like those are like.
Oh, Connor McDavid is technically not a free agent until 28 because his 2-year deal starts.
Oh, it just kicked in. It just kicked in.
But I believe like Kucherov's a free agent.
Kucherov,
Like,
yes.
You're
But
talking
he's also
about guys
35.
like
You're
that.
talking about a 35-year-old Nikita Kucherov.
And in the same breath, as good as Kucherov is and as many points as he accumulates, last year in the postseason was rather disappointing. I think he scored 1 goal. So you have to be cautious. And I'm always nervous, especially when it comes to the Rangers, of, okay, who are you going to sign? And is signing another 34-year-old free agent the right move? I personally, if you're going to go after any of those names that you mentioned, Jason Robertson's the one that appeals the most to me. But then you're not really improving your center, your center depth and your positioning there. They don't really have that top flight center prospect. I know we talked about Baudouin, but is he going to be a 1 or 2C in the NHL? That remains to be seen, right? Greentree's a winger. I don't know if he has any center capabilities there. So they're starting to increase their wing depth. But in terms of that top flight center, which is always, I think, outside of a number 1 goaltender, top flight center is the hardest thing to find, and you have to draft it.
You know what's crazy though? Like I feel like for as long as the Rangers have had like a really good goaltending tandem or just a really good goaltender, they've never had a center. Like they've never had the it center. Like obviously, I don't want to say like a Connor McDavid, but even like a Nathan McKinnon, right? Like just a guy that
even like a Mark Stone or a Jack Eichel.
Yeah,
they could have had.
They could have had Jack Eichel. Or like a Tage Thompson, right? Like just a center that drives the game, and it feels like they've just never had that.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you starting to get like some flashbacks to the 2012 to 14 style Rangers, where he's like it seems to me like the roster is being constructed in a way where it's limit goals as much as possible and hope you could find the 2.
I had said that earlier. Like I had said that when like I said, it felt like they're going to win a lot of games 3-2 this year, or 2-1 this year. It doesn't feel like they're going to score a lot. I'm okay with it,
but
like
their power play is going to be legit.
Yeah, no, their power. You're going to have two legit shooting options in Mika and Dorofeyev. I don't know where they're going to play JT on the power play, but then you're going to have Fox running it. And you're going to have Lafreniere probably on the first power play unit this year that is probably going to be in the bumper or or net front. Or I mean, listen, I think you throw JT net front and put Lafreniere in the bumper, and you can go like if you're going to run that classic 1-3-1, if you have Fox, you have Dorofeyev and Mika on the wings, Lafreniere in the middle, and JT right in front of the net. I think that works.
I'm not even opposed to swapping Miller and Loff and putting Loff net front. I think that JT Miller's more of that. He's going to be more prone to getting into the dirty areas, but we've seen throughout Loff's career that a lot of his goals are net front. He's very good at deflecting pucks. He's very good in tight. He still has that skill. To me, that's an interesting dynamic because he also has the ability then to pop out down low and feed Miller, who probably has a little bit more of a better shot than Lafreniere does. So either way, that's the first one. Then you haven't even talked about Perreault. You have Sean Dursey. You have Will Cooley, who can go in the net front. Like you have some options for power play too as well.
Fuck it, throw Rempe out there. Throw him right in front of the net. Just have him stand in the crease.
I have no desire to see him play for the Rangers. I don't think there's any need. We've talked about all these names. We haven't even talked about the fourth line. They got Joe Veleno, right? He's going to be centering the fourth line. You could talk about that move however you want. It's just a Carrick-esque replacement. You have Melash.
By the way, if he scores more than 2 goals this year, then it is you won that signing.
You won the signing.
You've won the signing. If he contributes more than 2 goals this year, I'll set his over under at 2.5.
Yeah, and then eventually, like we talked about Greentree, right? If Greentree eventually gets called up, he's not going to be playing on the fourth line. So Cartier would get bumped down, or somebody gets bumped down. There's no clear path for Rempe to be playing in this. Well, he's not really an NHL caliber player. I hate to say, because the dude seems like a great guy, but in terms of the skill, in terms of the modern NHL style, for a team that already is lacking that elite speed, adding somebody that doesn't really have it and doesn't have the coordination to do a lot with it, as cool of a story as it was, it's tough.
You mean like tripping over children at a camp?
Yeah, but like that's the
stuff. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw that video. I was like, dude,
really?
How?
But then you
Also, the
see that
Rangers
stuff,
don't put
and
that out.
there's the human side of it where it's like this dude's just having fun. Like he just loves
Yeah.
to be there, which is always good to have in your room. But
He's
I
great.
don't know.
Listen, I think there's a reason that he's still around. I don't think it has to do with how he plays on the ice. Like, I think there's a legitimate reason why he's still around. I think from what I've heard, like you can't send him down because someone's going to claim him off waivers. Like if you really like him in the locker room that much, and listen, you might sit here and say good, like whatever, who cares? It clearly shows that the organization values him as a guy in the locker room.
Sure, we'll go with that.
We're breaking kumbaya already. I saw the wheels turn in your head. You're like, this motherfucker. Like, I'm done.
No, just to me, there's better options. I think the biggest move that I was shocked with this was the Edstrom trade, because I think when healthy, he proved
when healthy, never healthy, but when
correct.
healthy.
Yeah, and then I sat and I reflected, and I was like, well, I had the same feeling with Edel, and he's played 5 games for Vancouver since that trade. So there's players that you have to be willing to part ways with. I don't. If Rempe got claimed off waivers, are they a worse team? No. So like to me, you have to make your decision based on the current group, and I'm not going to sacrifice the potential of one of these prospects who's shown a lot in Hartford. And I'm not saying day one Rempe has to be waived. But I'm saying, like, if you put him on the team and Greentree lights it up down there, or somebody lights it up down there, and you want them to have a legit a shot at playing in the NHL, and you have to waive somebody or move somebody, that's not stopping me. If somebody signs him or claims him, okay, you deal with that. Now, if he was Tom Wilson-esque and he had that physical presence and he could also score, it's a much different conversation. But we haven't seen that. I just don't think that's Rempe's game. And especially when you have Melosh, who's a very similar build. Like, he's huge. He could score. They have Rubrick coming up. They have who was the guy that just lit up the
Nathan Aspinall.
Like, they have guys that are cut from that cloth that have proven they have a little bit more offensive upside. So
I have somebody told me that there was one. I'll give you. I'm going to have you guess who it was, but I have. He went on waivers. He was claiming him immediately. Could you get it? It's a very obvious answer. Could you give a guess at who that was?
You cut out a little bit. So it's somebody that went on. If they went on waivers, he would claim him immediately.
Matt Rempe. If Matt Rempe went on waivers, there is an NHL coach, or there's a either former or current NHL coach that said he would claim him immediately. Could you guess who that was? It's not Laviolette. Think Hartford.
Think Hartford. Not Knobloch, no, right?
Chris Knobloch.
Really?
Chris Knobloch had said that if Matt Rempe went on waivers, he would claim him immediately. And obviously, he's not in the. It might be why he's not a coach anymore. But
I'm sure they didn't learn from a Trent Frederick contract.
I'm sure they're. Listen, I think Rempe's making $900,000. Before we go, I can't believe we've done an hour at this point already in August. Gabe Perreault's obviously due for a new contract next year. It's going to have a lot to do with how he plays this year. Can you predict now what he's going to make? The thought that came into my head immediately was Colin Graff's new contract in San Jose, which is, I believe, $4.5 million. Like, that feels like a very comparable contract and a comparable player, at least assuming that Perreault doesn't have a 30, 40 goal season this year.
There's two sides to this, because you'll have the Ranger side and then you'll have his agent side. Cap's going up, and we've seen teams do this, right? You have the Dylan Gunthers of the world. You have contracts like that where teams are willing to say, we'll give you the 7 years at this price tag, and we know the cap's going to go up, but we're giving you the longevity. Do the Rangers go that route? Because he's a young player, he's got skill. You kind of want to build around that style, right? So could they give him 7x6, 7x7? And would he accept that? Because that's a long contract and a rising cap for a player that could potentially, be a 70, 80 point guy. Or do they do bridge style, and do they say, here's a 2-year, $4.5, $5 million contract, and then we'll give you a longer term deal if you prove yourself a little bit more. But then you risk him, starting to shop around, and then there's RFAs, and now all of a sudden offer sheets or something you have to look out for. So I don't know. To me, I'd be more comfortable with somewhere in that middle ground, like maybe a 5x6, especially if he puts up 50, 60 points this year. and if he's willing to take that. But if I'm his agent, I would be like, why are you going to take a deal at $6 million? Because if you have 170-point season, look at what Leo Carlson just signed for, right? Now, I'm not saying Gabe Perreault is Leo Carlson yet, but if Gabe Perreault starts to put up numbers at 23, 24 years old, your contract value is clearly a lot higher than $6 million in the NHL. Braden Schneider just got 5.5. So it's that. These are the types of discussions that you're going to have now. And I'd always err on the side of lock him up as long as possible at the lowest AAV that he's willing to accept. And then if you have to trade it, that's a contract that's a lot easier to move in a rising cap situation than, giving him only 2 years, and you're going to have to now sign him and probably sign him at a lot higher of a price tag than you would have had to do now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at graph and the contract that I had seen most recently, 21 goals, 25 assists, 46 points in 81 games as a 23-year-old. Like that might be a steal. I mean, granted, San Jose can't pay anybody because they're paying Jacob Trouba like $40 million this year.
And now Macklin Celebrini just signed
and
what?
Macklin
19?
Celebrini. Like the fact that what did he sign for? 15?
No, I thought it was 19.
19 a year?
Yeah, because I know Bedard signed for 15.
Jesus Christ.
Macklin Celebrini, $18.8 million per year for 5 years.
So Jacob Trouba in San Jose is making just more than half of what Macklin Celebrini is making. That makes that because he's making 8, right?
But see, that's this is the style. He's making 8, but Celebrini's deal doesn't start until 27-28.
So next
right?
year.
So you look at what San Jose did, and they're just like, we know. Now, if the Rangers had Macklin Celebrini and they gave him that contract, I think we'd all be like, let's go. He's locked up because that's a different style player. He's probably going to be one of the best players in the league
Macklin
season.
Celebrini, I will go on record to say Macklin Celebrini is Connor McDavid-esque, like Connor McDavid level.
He's almost there, and it's scary. So that's a different level, right? We're not saying here, Gabe Perreault, you got to lock him up for $18 million a year. That would be nuts. But what San Jose did is they're like, we don't want you to hit the market, even if it's just RFA status, and we don't want you to feel slighted, right? Because I think you have to handle the human side of it. You don't want to just keep offering bridge deals and then people get pissed off. So if you look at Gabe Perreault and the conversation is, what's the max that you're willing to sign for? And if we give you those years, what does the AAV look like? And you start to bridge that gap. And if it winds up being a 5-year deal, which is kind of the norm right now that we're seeing is these kids signing for 5 years. Well, give them 5 years, and I would be willing to go up to what JT Miller's contract is, because at $8 million, it's not a huge piece of your cap. You're not limiting building
This
isn't
2021. Like this isn't the post-COVID cap where it doesn't move and $8 million hinders where you can go.
And they're going to have a lot of guys on rookie deals that are going. You would think are going to be a piece of this, especially over the next few years. So. That I would say, 5 up to 8, then I would be okay with it, especially if you're just locking them up. And I mean, what's Ryan Leonard looking at?
Ryan. I mean, what was Ryan Leonard like? Did he have a good year last year? Like, obviously, I didn't follow him, but I felt like he was a little bit underwhelming for what he was, unless I'm just completely wrong.
I don't know if you're completely wrong. Last year, he had 75 games. He had 20, 25, 45.
Ryan Leonard still making 9. Oh, are you asking for what his contract is? What his point total?
No. I'm saying, what do you think that like his next contract's going to wind?
I mean, listen, I just gave you Colin Graff's numbers. He has the exact same numbers as Colin Graff, 20, 25, 45 in 75 games. So
I feel like Ryan Leonard has this aura about him.
He does.
A higher pick, right? So you have.
Graff was an undrafted free agent. Graff was an undrafted free agent. That makes more sense. I mean, it probably feels like a 7 or 8. I mean, it feels like a 7 or 8, maybe 9. In Washington, especially when Ovechkin comes off. Is Ovechkin still making decent money?
Decent, but not Ovechkin money. Because I just told you, right? Ryan Leonard had 75 games played. He had 20 goals, 25 assists, 45 points. Gabe Perreault had 49 games played. He had 12 goals, 15 assists, 27 points. Like, if you do that math, those numbers are pretty much even.
Yep.
Yeah. And Gabe Perreault really didn't have a role until the last 20 or so games. Like when he started to actually play with Lafreniere and Zibanejad after the Panarin trade, that's when he started to produce. So the Rangers could have a guy here that is a 60, 70 point guy at his low end. And his vision is, especially if you put him with a Dorofeev who could score. Like
the more you talk about that, the more I'm convinced that those two need to play together.
I think that they have to play together. I do not care who the center is on that line. They have to play together because to me, the only way that Dorofeev's impact is felt at the level it was felt in Vegas in terms of scoring goals, and hopefully even at a higher impact level with New York because they just gave him all this money in this term, is by having somebody whose number one attribute is finding his teammates. And that's Gabe Perreault. The whole reason they drafted him was not he wasn't the fastest skater, he doesn't have the hardest shot, but his vision and IQ are second to none on the offensive side. You put him on the wing, you put the Dorofeev on the other wing, and you hope that they find that chemistry, the same type of chemistry that Panarin and Trocheck had found just a couple of seasons ago. Like that's how you hope that they pan out together. That has to be the way. And you saw it in the shoulder check game. Weren't they playing together?
I'm going to be honest. I was there. I really didn't watch most of the game. Like
everybody was wearing number 40, so I had a really hard time figuring who was who. But
at some point for me, I've actually made a joke. I got Gritty. Gritty got me. Gritty got me really good. Gritty grabbed me by the waist. It was interesting. It was a lot of distractions.
This guy was getting
I got
attacked by Gritty.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, honestly, it ended up feeling like more of a networking event. I spoke with our good buddy Johnny Lazarus for like 45 minutes. Just that guy's real. He's like famous now. I don't know if you realize that. Like,
a lot of people know who he is.
Dude, the amount of people that like stopped and you know how famous he is. He got to the point where I heard somebody like online just go, "Who the hell is that guy?" Everybody keeps taking pictures with him. I was like, that's where you've gotten in your career. Granted, I don't want to out him, but he did put the video out there. I had taken a video when they announced him. He almost ate shit walking onto the ice, like onto the carpet. The carpet slipped out underneath him. That would have been just hilarious. But I can't wait to have him on this year. I know we've had him on the last 2 years, so it'll be great to get our yearly Johnny content. But
this year's gonna be fun. We'll have some fun moments. We'll get creative with the show. We'll have obviously hopefully a little bit of a Hartford twist to it, like we talked about at the top, because that's the future of the Rangers. And then hopefully we have some more enjoyable hockey to talk about as well. And
hopefully it's not just miserable.
Exactly. And then eventually, we'll have some interviews. We'll do some things like that, and we'll make it a little bit more consistent because now it looks like we all have where we're going to be is established. Yeah.
Stability.
There's no more running around. And I was in like a dark room just studying for 4 months straight. So I am so excited to be able to talk. And
it's exactly why I do what I do, is so I don't have to study anymore outside. I'm in between. I have a couple buddies that study for the bar. You guys are the CPAs, and I picked the one profession where I don't need to. Once they handed me my diploma, the schooling ended. Now I just learn. Now you learn in the field.
Yeah, schooling starts in some of these professions after the fact. So I'm glad that's done.
Nuts.
But it's enjoyable. We'll have a good year, and we'll have some planning. I don't know when we're going to do the next episode, but hopefully we'll start to get into that groove. And then, of course, as soon as we get into that groove, my wedding's September 5th. My honeymoon, I'll be in Hawaii for 2 weeks, so I'll be back right before the start of the season.
To be.
Nah. But I don't think
a bad place to be at all.
Don't think the wife's going to say, "Yeah, why don't you take a couple of minutes from our vacation?"
I was going to say we're going to make you podcast from Hawaii. We're going to make you do the podcast from Hawaii.
I'm in the top of this mountain looking at this waterfall.
Let's say in a volcano.
That's how I get pushed in. That's what happens if I do that. So it'll be a 2-week break for me there, but outside of that, I'll be good to go.
All right. Well, it's great to be back. I was so excited to be back. Whoever was listening, thank you so much for.
Yep.
First of all, you're a sicko for a Sunday morning in August listening to us. So appreciate it and can't wait to get the season underway.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. We'll have a lot more to talk about as the training camp starts and preseason starts to kick off, and we'll look forward to it. So talk to you guys soon.
See ya.